Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Namibia marks the mass killings of indigenous people in the early 20th century by former colonial ruler Germany with its first Genocide Remembrance Day. Between 1904 and 1908, tens of thousands of Herero and Nama people were massacred or forced into concentration camps. I speak to a spokesperson from Windhoek's government who was there at that inaugural commemoration. Also, Wednesday is a big day for West African bloc ECOWAS as well. It's been 50 years since it was formed, but it's an anniversary that comes at a turbulent time. And as war rages elsewhere in the country, in Sudan's capital, the scale of destruction is laid bare. Weeks after the army wrested control back of Khartoum from the RSF paramilitary, the rebuilding of the scarred city is estimated at billions of dollars. But first, for the first time, Namibia has held a National Day of Remembrance for the genocidal killings of indigenous Herero and Nama under German colonial forces. The massacre of tens of thousands of people happened between 1904 and 1908 and was the first genocide of the 20th century. The slaughter was very deliberate, as the general sent in to put down an uprising by the Herero instructed his troops to wipe out the tribe. At least 65,000 died, as well as over 10,000 Nama. On Wednesday, a ceremony honouring the victims of that brutality was held in the National Parliament in the capital Windhoek. Germany only recognised the atrocities as genocide in 2021, and though it's agreed to pay $1.1 billion to Windhoek over 30 years, Namibia is insisting on formal reparations.
We should also find a degree of comfort that the fact the German government has agreed to offer an apology to the affected communities and to the Namibian people in general. We might not agree on the final quantum, but this is part of the complex negotiation we have been engaging in with the German government since 2013, and of course, with the participation of the representative of the affected communities.
I'm joined now by Minister Emma Theophilus, who was at Wednesday's commemorations, and she's Namibia's Minister of ICT. Minister, thanks so much for making time to speak to me. First of all, why have you chosen to have this first day of remembrance this year, and why May 28th?
Well, thank you for having me. First thing is that since 1908, when the genocide officially concluded, Namibia was still under colonial rule until 1990, when we gained our independence, because shortly after World War II, the administration of Namibia was put under apartheid South Africa's administration, and until 1990, Namibia did not receive its independence. Now, post-1990 was a time when Namibia was putting its affairs in order, and during that period of time, there were a lot of discussions, a lot of dialogue, because the two communities affected value different days. First of all, the 2nd of April is when the extermination order was made by General Lothar van Trotha to exterminate every man, woman, and child seen walking, and to actually ensure that their land and cattle was stolen. And then on the 28th, on the 2nd of October was when the camps were ordered to close, but that order was only officially implemented on the 28th of May. So the 28th of May holds that significance that finally on the 28th of May, the concentration camps where women, men, and children are forced into, where they worked hard labor, and where women had to physically scrape off the flesh of men's skulls to be shipped up to Germany, were officially closed. So this is what brought us to this date, this Wednesday, the 28th of May 2025, which has been proclaimed as a Genocide Remembrance Day. It has also been declared as a public holiday to show its significance in the history of Namibia.
Wow, that is a lot to carry. It must have been a very moving event. But beyond those who were there at the official commemorations that you attended, within wider Namibian society, what do you think this day means for their relationship with their history and identity?
Well, first, I believe it's a beginning for healing for this targeted communities and generally for the Namibian population as a whole. It's also a beginning to talk about restorative justice for the affected communities, to regain back dignity of the affected communities, and to ensure that the country is more united than ever before. But truly, the emotions were very high as we commemorated this very important day. There is still a lot of unresolved matters. The land issue is a big one that has not been resolved yet. Families and communities were ripped from their loved ones. Many of the Ovaherero people had to flee into neighboring Botswana. And only last year, we welcomed the first batch of Namibians who fled into Botswana with their ancestors, choosing to come back home. So communities and families were torn apart. Their assets were stolen and taken by force. They still have unhealed generational trauma that continue to manifest itself today. And Namibia as a nation continues to feel the economic, loss that it experienced with the loss of all these lives and all those assets taken from these affected and targeted communities.
And where do negotiations with Germany stand? Why is it so hard to, particularly when you've just laid everything out like that, get some kind of official reparations agreed on? Unfortunately, Minister, we don't have much time, but I really would want to get your take on this.
Yes, indeed, the negotiations with Germany are ongoing. We had three elements. One, that Germany needed to actually accept that a genocide happened, because there was a time when they didn't accept that a genocide did happen. Secondly, that they needed to apologize. And third, that they needed to pay reparations. So they, of course, already on the table offered 1.1 billion euros over 30 years. But that sounds, not a quantum every community is happy about. And the negotiations are ongoing. But the aim is to ensure restorative justice and reparations are paid for the loss of lives, over 100,000 lives that were lost during this first genocide of the 20th century.
Minister Emma Theophilus, Namibia's Minister of ICT, and also one of the attendees at the country's very first commemorations for the genocide of the Herero and Nama communities. Thank you very much for joining me. Well, Wednesday also was a big day for West African bloc ECOWAS. It's been 50 years since it was formed. But the anniversary does come at a turbulent time. ECOWAS's credibility and clout has taken a blow since Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger quit earlier this year. Many of the bloc's remaining 12 members are also struggling to manage the fallout from security concerns, geopolitical shifts and internal fragmentation. Nigeria is the current head of the rotating presidency. But despite the hurdles faced by parts of the region, on Wednesday, Abuja remained positive about ECOWAS's way forward.
This Golden Jubilee is not merely a celebration of the past, but a summons to shape the future. Commanding us, say, let us draw strength from our history, courage from our struggles, and hope from our shared potential.
In Khartoum, the dust is settled and the scale of the destruction laid bare in the capital. Weeks after Sudan's army wrested control back of Khartoum from the RSF paramilitaries with which it is still at war, the rebuilding of the battle-scarred city is estimated to be around $6 around billions of dollars. And the fighting elsewhere in the country still continues. Emily Boyle tells us more.
Once lined with shiny skyscrapers, only skeletons are left of Khartoum's business district after 2 years of brutal civil war. The scale of the destruction is devastating. Almost all the city's key infrastructure is in ruins.
The water station was subject to complete looting of all mechanical equipment and pressure pumps. They were looking for copper as well as oil in the transformers. They mixed it with other substances and used it as fuel for cars.
RSF soldiers left no stone unturned, often drilling holes into walls and roads to uncover valuable copper wire or even tearing cables off walls. Sudan's oil production has more than halved, and its power plants have been gutted for parts, making its recovery an almost impossible task.
All commercial centers distributing electricity in Khartoum were destroyed. All the transformers have been destroyed, and not even one is left. And that is why we are moving forward as if Khartoum is brand new.
The Sudanese army recently took back the capital after weeks of violent battles with the RSF in the streets of Khartoum. Hospitals have been ransacked, roads and bridges are unusable, and the airport completely burnt out. As many locals hope to come home, the path to reconstruction remains unclear.
We are estimating the damage to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. All the facility, the health facility in Khartoum have been damaged. Somewhere between 2 or 3 million people that are looking at returning to Khartoum. And we want to avoid a process that creates another humanitarian emergency.
After 2 years of war, aid groups say Sudan is considered to be the worst humanitarian crisis of the 21st century.
And a cancer nurse from Ghana has fended off competition from about 100,000 other candidates to win one of her profession's top prizes. Naomi Oti's been named as the winner of this year's Astor Guardians Global Nursing Awards, taking home a $250,000 prize for her groundbreaking work transforming cancer care across Africa. As she accepted the award in Dubai, Oti said that her win is a victory for nurses from across her continent. A huge congratulations. That is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Hollywood, a 9-letter word symbolizing the city and so much more, now represents an industry in turmoil.
I've been just been like working survival jobs, so it's been disappointing, and it's I still am really hopeful that it's going to come back, but there's no kind of indication that's true.
LA has experienced crisis after crisis, including COVID, strikes, and wildfires.
I was in love with this house. I was proud of the fact that it was the first house I actually bought. I've been a renter all my life. It sucks. Totally sucks.
And now other U.S. states are offering competitive alternatives.
And so just to have this available to film is a great asset. Albuquerque can offer other backdrops to films besides just a desert landscape.
But industry players are taking action. Hollywood, on the brink, a new episode of Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.